All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 2 of the Moffice Hours podcast. I'm your host, Moff. Got a really exciting one for you guys tonight. Got my good buddy, business partner in a way, fellow 10% admin and 1% general, Jaron Scott joining us tonight. I'm going to bring him up in a couple of minutes, but wanted to go ahead and quickly run through some basic housekeeping items for you guys. So I may or may not be doing a show next week. I've got 20 guys from the 1% community getting together for a meetup, and so everybody's kind of getting in on Thursday. I'm going to try my best and figure out what's going to work schedule wise. But I'd like to do a show. The following week I won't, and then the following after that, 10-12, got a really awesome guest interview lined up for you guys. So if you missed episode 1 last week, just go back in the Unplugged Alpha channel and search Moffice Hours. I'm working on getting it added to a playlist so it's easily searchable, so all of my weekly shows can be in one place. If you guys are noticing, got a little bit of a better setup this week. I've put some soundboard stuff, so put me in the comments or mention in the comments how the sound was or how the mic is coming through. Really trying to cut down on like the echo and things like that. So a couple of other things. Rich and I are launching a course to go live at the beginning of the new year. It's going to be called the School of Unplugging. So there's going to be 10 to 12 modules really for your beginner level guys. We're going to take a lot of the stuff from his book, the first and the second edition, and a lot of stuff that you guys have seen in videos over the year and putting it into a very cool and compact series of modules and videos. And there also will be a community component, very much like the School of Entrepreneurship. It's going to be for beginner level guys that really need that help starting out in finding that tribe, and they may not be ready for something like the 10% or the 1%. So to keep in tune with what we're doing and know about everything we've got going on, see the email list right here. Join the email list, the Entrepreneurs in Cars website. You also get the free chapter on red flags. If for some reason you live under a rock and you haven't read the book by now, you'll get that chapter for free. So get on that mailing list for all things coming up over the next couple of months. And the last thing is that I want to drop to you guys before I bring Jaron on is this went live today. So in January, it's January 20th and January 21st. We are having the 1% forum taking place in Toronto, where it's going to be a series of fireside chats, some networking, getting guys together from the community to really get together, break bread, rub shoulders with one another. And it's going to be all over a good time. It's an all-inclusive, I believe, everything except for the flight. So the hotel is covered, your meals are covered, the networking and everything like that is covered. And it's in a really nice boutique hotel in Toronto. I don't know the exact location yet, but I'm actually putting the link in the comments right now. So if you go to that website, you'll be able to kind of reserve your spot. If you're a non-community member, if you're a non-10% member, if you're a non-1% member, there's only 50 spots for the general public. So if you wanted a chance to meet Rich and you haven't joined the community, or if you want to kind of get to know some guys in the community and learn a little more about the stuff that we do in the 1% or the 10%, really fantastic opportunity to learn more about that. So, and also make sure you guys are following me here on my socials, Twitter/X, and Instagram at Moff_Unplugged. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my buddy Jaron. You guys have seen him on general shows before, and if you're not following his YouTube channel, definitely do that. But let's get him on the stage.
Hello. How's everyone doing? Not too much. How have you been? Thank you for having me on as your second guest, and congratulations on the new show.
First guest. Second.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were solo the first time. Yeah, first guest. Sweet. That's what I get for putting in a year in the pits with you in the stereo days. We went a whole year without missing an episode. That was insane.
Yeah. For you guys at home, we don't do this much anymore, and I'm usually on stereo very sparingly now. But Stereo was this audio only app that we used to run a sort of after show to the Unplugged Alpha. We'd have guys on after that. So that was, I think that probably gave us a lot of practice. And that was really kind of a proving ground for us to really hone like our mic skills and sort of bounce things off one another. And it's like, here we are, right? Like, it's awesome.
I know, yeah, stepping up. I saw you got the new mic. I upgraded my studio too. Finally treated that wall behind me with the the holes in it from my old office chair. Yep. So we're getting there.
Right on. Cool, man. Awesome. So, for those out there that maybe haven't seen you before, haven't seen your YouTube comment, haven't seen you content, or haven't seen you on, any of the generals chats, why don't you just give us like a really quick, high level overview of, how you came to find sort of Rich's content, and a little bit of a background on your story.
Yeah, so I lived in Latin America before. I studied abroad down here from like 2006, 2008, lived here and worked from 2010 to 2012. So thought I had the culture down. I played some ball down here, so I didn't really have game, but I didn't really need it because I always had perceived high SMV and always had girls following me and stuff. I was pretty popular and I was pretty decent at baseball down here. So fast forward to got out of school, did the whole corporate thing, fell into the American prescribed lifestyle of what a successful male or just individual should look like. Did everything that needed to be done as according to societal standards. Found myself at about 27 married to a Colombian girl. And again, with my previous Latin American experience, I figured, okay, I know what's going on. Turns out that ended up being a green card marriage. I caught it very quickly and got out of that very quickly. Actually didn't cost me that much money. I was going through some other stuff business-wise and some tragedies in my family happening at that time. So didn't really have anything for her to got out of there scot-free. And at that time I was like, all right, I need to reinvent myself because I've done everything right and I'm not happy. I'm not living life on my terms. I feel like I'm just kind of on autopilot going along for the ride. And there's something better than this out there. So I need to align myself with myself, get out there and start living life for me and no one else. So like most guys that come to this space, I don't even remember what I searched online. It's probably something divorce related. Came across Rich Cooper, started watching his content like you do with a lot of content creators, binge watched all of it. And really it was that voice in my ear that I needed. And I think when I was going through real hard times, it's like pick up heavy shit and put it down. Perfect. I'm a little academic at times. So I was like, what does that look like? How many reps? How many sets? Like, no. Just pick up heavy shit, put it down. And sometimes you need that. So I found Rich at just the right time in my life that really kicked off my personal transformation. Waited a few years, like a lot of you guys watching, kind of lurking and putting them on passively in the background, decided to finally join the top 10% or the top 1% group because I was making progress in my life. But then I was like, all right, well, I don't have any guys on my level. I don't have any guy friends that I can hang out with. Yeah, there's bar acquaintances and buddies and coworkers, but I started shedding those people a long time ago. It's like, all right, I just need to meet dudes. I didn't have any problems meeting girls, but like, where do you find cool guys? So joined the top 1% group. I was a fly on the wall for a bit, again, like a lot of guys in these private type groups. And I saw that some of the ballers in that group had trouble in areas of their lives that I never really had trouble with. So started doing a lot of very comprehensive posts, eventually got invited to the generals tier on Rich's main channel, got invited to, I think he used to do them Monday nights when he'd get like a whole panel of us up there. Later on down the line, he said, hey, I'm building this top 10% group. Do you want to be an admin? The guys seem to like you and you seem to, really care about helping guys level up. And I said yes, and I joined that with you as the admin. And we've been at that for like a year and a half now, and then just good things have been coming since then. So really, guys, it really depends on what kind of work you want to do and how far you want to go. But a good place to start is, watching this now, take that next step, sign up for the 10%. I'm in there as an admin, Moss in there as an admin. You have our Instagrams, so you can sign up through either one of us. And that's what brings me here today.
Yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about, unpack sort of that green card marriage a little bit. Cause I know that, I've known you for a long time and you've been, running in the Latin American circles and you've lived in Mexico and a bunch of other places for, probably going on 15 years at this point.
2006 till now, back and forth. So yeah.
So a while, right? And so, I think there's sort of this romanticization or romanticism around, passport bros and going somewhere out of the U.S. But we'll kind of get to that a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about this marriage, man. So you moved down here. How'd you meet her? How did that kind of transform itself into the green card marriage? How did you get out of it? How the hell did you dodge a bullet? Because divorce in general, super messy, but especially when you're talking about something like green card and citizenship, I'm sure that adds an entire, a whole other layer of complexity to things.
It certainly does. So again, I was doing pretty well in my mid-20s in terms of fast-tracking my way through my career on the corporate side of things. There was a point where I decided to start a small business with a buddy. Took a while to get that going until we ramped up, but eventually we were making pretty good money. So we were looking at opening an office on the East Coast. So I spent quite a bit of time in Miami, and the Spanish thing. So I love Colombians and Venezuelans and Brazilians and all those Latin-type women. So I ended up running across a girl, and I talk about this on my channel, Airport Games. So I met her at an airport, saw her walking past. I'm like, oh wow, she's cute. All right, didn't think anything of it. There's cute girls all over Miami. It turns out she ends up not only on my flight but sitting right next to me. And then she was actually reading a book that was a book that I really enjoyed back when I was in college down here, because I studied abroad down here in Mexico for a few years. And so I started talking to her about the book and how I enjoyed the author and just kind of how they went about developing the story there. And we hit it off really quickly to the point where mid-flight, you put the armrest up and she was leaning on my shoulder. So obviously got her information. It was a flight from Fort Lauderdale to Houston and Houston to San Diego on Spirit. So I used to fly that corridor quite often. So I just asked her like, hey, you going all the way to San Diego? Oh, I'm staying in Houston because I have family there. I'm like, oh, okay, damn it. Well, I'm in San Diego. Kept texting each other for a couple of weeks and she came out to San Diego. Did the back and forth thing for a while. She had family in Miami. She had family in Houston. I have family in Houston, and I was in California. So we just kind of, those cheap Spirit flights, just hopped back and forth for a few months. Eventually, she came out to California with me. Business was doing well until business wasn't doing well. So at that point, things got really sketchy really fast. You get to that point where you realize, okay, there's no way we're going to redeem this. We are going to crash this thing. Let's just try to soften the landing. So I was really stressed out at the time, dealing with a lot of stuff. So I told her, hey, how about this? Go to Houston for 90 days. Let me get through these hurdles that we have in terms of kind of laying this business to rest. And then eventually either I'll come out to Houston because I have family there. I was born in Texas, actually. Or you can come out to California. We'll figure that out. So took care of all that stuff, ended up tying everything up on the business front, not getting into any serious troubles. I was very close to going bankrupt, but never filed. So thank God there. And eventually decided, you know what? I've done the California thing. I've grinded really hard. I've worked really hard. And it seems like no matter how hard I try, I can't seem to really get ahead here, get a break. So I'll go to Texas. I'll stack cash. The original goal was to go out there with her, stay there for a year, and then head back to California. So got out there, sent her, and this is where I went wrong. I sent her out there for 90 days ahead of me. So my sweet little Latin girlfriend all of a sudden turned into the, oh, well, I don't need you to tell me what to do. We were at the gun range one time, so we were going through like just basic like gun safety rules. And I was like, hey, do you know these? Oh, no. I was like, okay, well, make sure. And then she's like, well, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I was like, yeah, you do. If you're from a country where they don't have guns, so before I get on the range with you, yes, you are going to go through these rules. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it. It was just kind of my head like, okay, that's weird. Where the hell's that coming from? All right, cool. So at that point, and this is, people talk about the illegal immigration thing. It's actually quite common where they do come on a tourist visa and they overstay that visa, and then they're kind of like a gray area type status. So she was in that status. We were talking about, we wanted to continue the relationship. She was pushing, hey, you know what? We need to get married. I actually wasn't ready to get married. So I told her, okay, well, we're going to spend this year together in Texas. I'll restore my funds to get back to California. We can do the quick marriage thing. We'll just do the civil wedding, not the ceremonial wedding, which in Latin cultures, no one really cares about the civil wedding. We just go to the courthouse and sign the documents. It's the ceremonial wedding. So I was like, all right, I'll give you the civil wedding. We'll get your immigration change of status going, so you're not in that weird kind of legal limbo there immigration-wise, while we start kind of rebuilding our lives and building our new lives together. So that was the plan. Pretty much once that green card came in the mail, or once her change of status or whatever it was came in the mail, she took off doing things like, well, I don't feel safe with you and I don't feel comfortable and I don't know, the relationship's not going where we want it to go. And here I am like, what are you talking about? I'm here. I did everything we agreed to. We etched out a plan together. I'm doing my part of the plan. And she slowly got more distant. I suspected she was with another guy actually. So couldn't really confirm that. And fast forward a bit. So I was kind of going through hell emotionally. I was by myself in this house or this apartment. We were going to get a house when we went back to California at some point. In this apartment, just like, what's going on? What am I doing out here? How did I get to this point? Because again, I had success with women before when I was in Latin America, and I never had any of these issues. Even in some of my previous relationships, when I was doing the serial monogamy thing in my 20s, I didn't have any of these issues. So I was like, how did I get here? All right. Didn't really think much of it. And I thought, okay, well, it's a me problem, like a lot of guys do. It's never a we problem. It's a me problem as the guy. So went to marriage counseling. I went to marriage counseling. We did not go to marriage counseling. You guys, if you've watched Rich's stuff for a while, you know how that story unfolds. So then it only took a couple sessions before the therapist is kind of like, hey, like, she's gone. You have to accept that. I don't think she's into you. And it took me a while to chew up that pill and swallow it. I didn't accept it for the longest time. And I did get a break where, her cousin, Colombian by blood, but Texas born and raised, core, TradCon American type values, just real good dude. He invited me out to beers one night, and he's like, hey man, he's like, you're a good guy. He's like, I hate to see you go through this. He's like, this is going to cause a lot of shit in my family, but I got to break it down to you. She's not with you. She's never been with you. She's with this guy. It is the guy he suspected. Sent me a ton of photo evidence and text messages and email evidence and stuff. And I was like, good. So at that point, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. Like, all right, I'm not going crazy. It's not me. I'm not being insecure, controlling. There is something going on. I should have trusted my intuition. Hired an attorney, my gym bro, and I found Rich about this time, pick up heavy shit and put it down. So I was training really hard because I was pissed. So I was like, what do I do with this aggressive energy? All right, the gym sanctuary. It's still my sanctuary until today. And so my good buddy, my gym bro, his dad was in a very high political position in Texas politics. So we went out to their ranch in San Marcos and we were hanging out, and his dad told me, he's like, hey, he's like, this divorce thing, you got to tie it up. I'm like, well, what'd I do? He said, find the most aggressive asshole attorney that can get it done and that actually wins cases. And in this case, it had to be family law and immigration law. So there was only a handful that I could really go to. He recommended me a guy, called the guy, and I didn't have much money at that time. I was still restoring my cash reserves and got out of it for, I think, $3,500 I sent him. So the attorney's plan was pretty much like, hey, we're gonna strike the fear of God in her. He's like, we'll have a constable go by her house. We'll put some pressure on her. We'll lead her to believe she's going to get deported, although legally that's not really quite a thing. But she, if I didn't have money, she really didn't have money. So she got some cousin of a friend's sister, like one of those Latin type extended network type attorneys. So my attorney told me at one point, he's like, really? He's like, the only way it'll cost you more money is because her attorney is so inept, he doesn't know what he's doing. So eventually we worked more on kind of convincing her that she was going to get in trouble and get deported. And then I think they get a 10-year ban to come back to the U.S. for her to run the whole scam over again. So we were able to streamline it by doing that, by giving her the perception that, hey, like either you finish this thing up or we're out of here. And again, thank God I'd gotten close to bankruptcy the year prior at this point to where I didn't really have any assets or anything. And since it was a sham marriage, then there was really no question about it. We had all the evidence. It was kind of a shut and close case for us. So I dodged a bullet there. I managed to get out of there, did find this space, started taking my fitness really seriously, started taking my career really seriously. Although I was good with girls before, I wouldn't necessarily say I had game. So started taking that seriously. And then that was 7-8 years ago. I don't even recognize myself anymore from that moment. So that brings us here today, and life is good. It's groovy. Where's this good vibes?
Yeah, dude, it's a hell of a story. I mean, I remember the first time I heard that, either Miami or Nashville when we got together.
Yeah.
And
our first powwow
stories. Yeah, man. Let me grab this super real quick because there's stuff I want to dive into.
Let's do it.
Let me highlight this one. So, KO Video says, appreciate all the content. Oh, by the way, just created a dating profile. Let's see if what I've learned from Rich over the last 2 years has paid off. Yeah. Let us know how it goes, man.
And if you need additional help, we both do coaching, and I'm actually launching a dating course here soon. So, yep, I got that part down. Yeah, no more green card marriages for me.
Man, I've always known you as a big gym rat, and we trade a lot of, gym knowledge and secrets and stuff like that back and forth. I want to talk about that a little bit because you've got a lot of content around fat to fit and certain hacks and sort of the way you're really, really in tune with your fitness and in your body, and whether that's your endocrine system and figuring that out, and as a, an athlete, you grew up an athlete, but, what
I was fat.
What was you were kind of like that chiseled Greek god guy, right? You were like you were kind of a frumpy dude, and I mean, we've been there, and like, what was that sort of turnkey moment where you finally just said, look, enough is enough, and talk to us a little bit about just like your fitness journey in general, and how that's gone for you from kind of making that decision to where you are now.
Yeah, so I actually grew up fat. I grew up in the 1990s in a liberal Pacific Northwest state. So we were fed, I mean, it's bad now, this body positivity stuff, but even back then we were fed with the, oh, you're not fat, you're big boned, or, oh, you got to grow out before you grow up, which I do DEXA scans, guys that are familiar with my program. I do have big bones, but I had a lot of fat on those big bones too. So those two don't go well together. And I never really, and no one really bullied me either. I was really good academically, so no one really gave me any crap. A couple guys would try, and I thought they were idiots, so like I just kind of ignored them, and never really went anywhere. So I thought I was good, and then it didn't occur to me that I was actually overweight and I needed to do something about it until teenage years, when guys, my guy friends started getting girlfriends and started getting laid and started getting dates to prom and dances and doing all sorts of fun stuff. And for me, like, I was always friends with all the girls, but none of them really saw me in that way, and I couldn't figure it out. And then at one point, I believe I asked a girl to a dance, like prom or homecoming or one of those. And of course, I did what kids used to do. I wrote the note, like, will you go to prom with me? Yes or no. She could have just checked yes or no, like the George Strait song, and then been over in 3.5 minutes, like that song. But she decided to write a full front and back standard notebook paper size letter in those little colored gel pens back in the day, alternating colors. So she really put effort into it, to tell me, like, not only does she not want to go to prom with me, but I'm disgusting, that it's embarrassing I even look at her that way, that everyone knows I like her, that no one will ever like me. And at one point she gave it to her friend, who I was in like a garage band with at the time, to give to me. The friend threw it away. I was like, hey, like, I really thought I had a shot. So I'm like, what did it say? Oh my God, what did it say? So the friend's like, no, she's like, you don't need to read it. So this girl, she was so disgusted, by me that the girl I asked out, she wrote another note same way, and then hand delivered it to me personally. And we were sitting at the lunchroom or whatever, so someone grabbed it at the table, and everyone knew. Like, I'm sure the note had circulated before it got to me, so I was not as bad as like a cheesy 80s teen flick or anything, but pretty bad to where I was like, I felt publicly humiliated. So at that point, it was like, all right. And for the first time I looked in the mirror, I was like, oh my God, you're disgusting. Like, we got to fix this. And I could see through the fat. I'm like, yeah, there's someone else in there. And I remember at about that time, I started having dreams of being 10 years older, looking in the mirror back at myself, which is crazy. There was a moment when I got fit where I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh my God, like, it's like a checkpoint in a video game. You're like, whoa. And, so at that point, didn't really know what to do, but dieting advice was limited at that time. Google didn't exist yet. There weren't smartphones or anything. So you pretty much just go off of like what's out in the ether, what's in the mainstream at the time. But I did know, okay, fruits and vegetables healthy, fried foods not. Okay, check, get rid of that. Cut the sugar out. I didn't realize at the time that fructose is actually sugar, and I grew up on a farm. So I thought I ate healthy as a kid, but it was just cherries and peaches and apricots and all sorts of apples and pears and all sugar. But I'm like, oh, it's fruit. It's healthy. I didn't know that. No one told me that. So for me, it was more, I'd wake up every morning, I'd walk for a few miles, I'd go to school. At lunchtime, I'd just walk the track. And then after school, I'd go home and I'd walk. And it started out, when you're really, really heavy, you don't have to do much. You really just have to clean up your diet and then start just moving. So I was logging like 9 or 10 miles a day. And I do remember when I first started where there'd be times, like especially after school, everyone's driving home from school and they're kind of pointing and laughing like, oh, fat ass or whatever. But for me, again, I always knew those guys were losers, and I always knew I was going to amount to more than them. So that actually motivated me. So this whole body positivity thing, can't call people fat. I'm like, for me, please call me fat, because that motivated me. I'm just like, fuck these guys. Like, I'm going to show them. And how do you show them? You get jacked. You move away from your little podunk hometown and you go international and you create an awesome lifestyle for yourself. So I already kind of had that in me. Going back to like the divorce story, I kind of already had that in me, that seed planted. Like, all right, if I want something, I can do it. I can do anything I put my mind to. So did that. It didn't take long, really. I think in 8-9 months, I lost the bulk of the weight. And then there's new considerations when you start getting leaner. So it took me another year to kind of figure that out. And I started early, I think fall my junior year. No one really noticed me losing weight or anything because it was cold. I was in Washington State, so I was like bundled up. And then I was actually a bit ahead in school too, so I wasn't really on campus. I worked, I did a 0-hour class. I was on the radio in the mornings, and then I worked at a video store in the afternoon. So I just kind of skirted past everyone's radar. And then it wasn't until after that summer coming into my senior year where I wasn't muscular yet, but I was really thin. I was lean, and no one really recognized me. And actually at the end of that junior year, I had a new girl, one of the cuter girls in school. She actually asked me to prom, and I'm like, whoa, like a year before I got humiliated, and now this girl asked me to prom. And of course you get that PTSD type moment, like, oh my God, is she going to humiliate me? Is this some kind of whatever? Right. Nope. Turns out she was super sweet, just a real nice girl, new to town, didn't know any girls. I didn't have any game at all. It's just my last name is Scott and her last name was very close to mine. We sat alphabetically in Am Lit class, and I just kind of flirted with her all the time, like a little boy flirting type. I never really had game quite yet. So she asked me to prom 2 weeks later. Like, we were seeing each other all the time, high school type romance. Asked her to be my girlfriend, and then we did that. So fast forward to like me going to college. I was still skinny for a bit. Wasn't really interested in becoming muscular. I was good academically, so I got into a good Ivy League school, but my girlfriend couldn't get into a good school. So I actually went to a state school, a substandard state school with her. Turns out she rushed sorority and cheated on me in the first week with 2 dudes. Again, wish Red Pill existed back before all this happened. I would have saved myself a lot of heartache. And so I was like, all right, well, this sucks. And since I was a couple years ahead, I had like an AA degree, community college degree, whatever it's called, when I graduated high school. So I'm like, all right. And I had scholarships. So most of my undergrad was paid for. So I was like, all right, well, I don't want to graduate college when I'm 21. And I knew growing up on a farm that I had to speak Spanish. All of our employees were Spanish. And I always thought, small town mentality, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to college. I'm going to come home. I'm going to take over the farm. So I knew I had to learn Spanish. And the opportunity came up for me to study abroad. It was either somewhere in Spain, and I was like, well, with my scholarships, I can afford 1 semester, or come to Mexico. I was like, well, I can afford to like do my entire education in Mexico. And it was a direct exchange program where every class I took transferred right back to the U.S. as if I was in the U.S. So when I came to Mexico, brought my catcher's gear down because I played ball through high school. Even when I was fat, I always had a spot on the team because I had a high batting average and I was smart. I could always figure out how to get on base, and behind the dish, I usually called the games too. So the pitchers always wanted me on the team because, like, hey, I want to save my arm. Like, I can throw a handful of pitches, just ground ball outs, get out of here real quick. Scouts are watching. I went to a high school that's really well known for baseball in the area, and that very good talent there comes out of the area I grew up in. So I brought my gear down to Mexico, like, all right, I'll join a pickup league, like an adult co-ed, whatever league. So a buddy of mine from Texas and I, we were throwing bullpen one day, and the coach comes, he's like, hey, do you boys want to join the team? And at that point, I was only going to study abroad for 1 semester and do like the intensive Spanish program. But I learned Spanish really quickly. So I came down 2 weeks early. And then by the time I started my level 1 Spanish, I was already talking. The teacher's like, what are you doing here? Why don't you just enroll as a student? And then the coach is like, hey, there's a quota for how many foreign students can be on the sports teams. Our basketball team was all African Americans. So like, hey, the school hit the quota, but we want you 2 white guys on the baseball team. So you're going to have to enroll as Mexican students. So figured out how to do that. And then I did most of my undergrad, not here in Mexico City. I was in Guadalajara, actually. And that's where I started getting fit. We had dietitians and trainers and all that stuff. So kind of got on the fitness thing. Fast forward to my 20s again, went to the gym but didn't train, and started just getting a little flubby, getting a little chubby, not as lean and mean as I was in my college days, because I was guided by coaches, dietitians, and nutritionists, and people in the gym or whatever. And then again, going back to the divorce thing, that's where I had that aha moment, just like I did when I got shut down for that with that prom note. To where, all right, I need to get jacked. I need to figure this out. And anything I put my mind to, I can do it. And then I got really methodical about it. Started tracking everything, took my little notebook to the gym, started with progressive overload, started tracking everything, tried every program, every diet, every eating protocol, every timed eating window or fasting, extended fasting. I did all of that stuff and documented everything. So having done that for a few years, it eventually got to the point where like, oh, Like I can be big and strong, or I can be lean and muscular, looking like a fitness model based on this framework that I set for myself. So I never fancy myself like a trainer or dietitian or anything, but I got it down for myself. And then guys notice and they start asking you these things like, hey, how'd you get this dialed in? So that's where I add a lot of value in the community, more so for guys who are formerly fat. We get guys and they're like, oh, I'm 140 pounds and 6'2". That's an exaggeration, but like very lanky guys. How do I put on weight? I'm like, dude, I was 140 pounds when I was 8. Like I couldn't play football when I was 8 because I was too fat. The weight limit was 140. I was like 148. And so that again, liberal state, too fat to play football. Like you're fat, you're not fat, you're big bone, but you're too fat to play football. All right, cool. So again, going back to the unplugging thing, like this is what I grew up with to now it's like I've completely created my whole new reality for myself on the fitness front, the dating front, the finance front, the professional front, everything. And again, that brings me here today. I was actually going to wear a tank top because I am pretty lean right now, but I was like, oh, I don't know. Rich always gives guys shit when they call in shirtless.
Only the shirtless guys. Guys. I'm like, like tens of thousands of people are going to see this, right?
Yep. Yeah, I've got my upper chest striations.
Let's talk language a little bit, man. You brought that up a couple of times. I mean, how important is it to really, if you're going to go to a place like Mexico, how important really is it to learn the language? I guess what I mean is, to what level should the average guy, try to learn? Is there enough to just get by in basic conversation? Like, where's this? How do I order that? Is it really important to become completely fluent? What would you say to a guy that's like, hey, how good should I really get at learning the language if I'm going to move down here, or if I'm going to, kind of create a life down here?
I'd say it's the same as new immigrants to the US or Canada, Australia, UK, or really any other country for that matter, in terms of, because I have a lot of friends down here. So I'm going to go to the U.S. I'm like, well, you better learn U.S. culture, and you better get your English good. Like, you don't, in places like L.A., Miami, you don't need English. But if you really want to get ahead, you have to speak English in the U.S. In fact, it pisses me off when certain political people say, oh no, the English shouldn't be the official language, or oh, new immigrant class, don't learn English. I'm like, you're officially trying to hold them back. Like, that doesn't serve anyone. So think of it that way. Like, guys, in your home countries, you come across a new immigrant and you can barely speak your language. Like, it's kind of frustrating. Like, yeah, you can do basic stuff. You can buy groceries, or maybe you can get your basic needs taken care of, but you can't really connect on a deeper level. You can't integrate with the culture, and you're not going to get ahead. So it's the same thing for Mexico. For a lot of people, they come down here, they look at it as an adult playground, which if you go to certain tourist areas, or if you go to like the red zones in certain parts of the country that are known for that, that's the experience you're going to have. That's fine. Everyone at the resorts speak English. Anyone that caters to international guests, they speak English. You will pay a gringo tax. They will rip you off because you don't know any better. You don't speak Spanish. So depends on the experience you want to have. I think a lot of guys are fine coming down here, going to the bars that the gringos go to. Of course, the girls that go to those bars are there to pick up gringos. Usually they have alternative motives, and the guys know none the wiser, but it's still better than back home. So they come down, they have a good experience, but they never really get integrated into the culture, like actually have a life or lifestyle down here. So I was lucky that I came down as a university student. I picked it up real quick. I went to a really good school, one of the top schools in the country. Didn't even know it at the time. And then now when I open my mouth, people are like, okay, you speak the language well, but I can tell you, like, you're educated in Spanish. Like, oh, I went to such and such university. Like, oh yeah. And they kind of get it. And that really kind of shaped my thinking too, but really depends on the experience you want to have. I'm fortunate I had that experience when I was young, got it out of the way, but well before the whole passport bros thing. When we got locked down, I was in California at the time during COVID. It's like, I'm going to go back to Latin America because it's a lot cheaper and I already know the lay of the land. And when you know the language and the culture is a huge aspect too. When you know the lay of the land, just in general, you have a much, much richer experience than someone who's just fresh off the plane, so to speak, because I guess you don't boat from the U.S. unless you go across the Gulf of Mexico. Fresh over the border, let's just say that. It's still weird considering myself an immigrant, but I'm a foreigner.
Right.
And you see the gringos come and go all the time. They come down and they're like, oh, they get in the passport roasting. Oh, I'm going to go down there and it's going to rain pussy and I'm going to have all this fun and it's so cheap. Well, it's actually not that cheap. If you're going out getting bottle service every night, yeah, it's considerably cheaper than the U.S. But if you get into that party lifestyle or you get stuck in that gringo bubble, the guys wash out pretty quickly. Whereas me, I'd already lived down here for 4 years. So I'm going on year 3 since I've been back down here. It's nothing new to me. In fact, I've got a buddy coming down to stay with me here for a couple months to do some work together, and I'm excited for him because I get to relive that new foreigner experience through him and help him along kind of some of those growing pains. Like I don't get culture shock anymore. I don't miss home. For me, this feels like home. In fact, when I go to the U.S., it's like, what a weird place, because the U.S. just gets worse every time I go there. So it really depends on your experience. If you want to have the full experience, and if you want to live a life like other foreigners don't live, you have to learn the language and culture. And that's not just Mexico, that's anywhere in the world.
Right. Yeah, let's come back to, America versus Latin America or Mexico in a second. But, for somebody that's interested in coming down there for 3-4 months at a time, 6 months, maybe they're trying out different spots. What are, as an American, what are maybe, a few of the most common faux pas or sort of social oversteps that you've seen or that guys should know about, so they know, to avoid, that they don't wind up, saying the wrong thing to somebody or getting had or sort of the wool pulled over their eyes, that sort of thing. What are some things they should be aware of, right off the bat?
Yeah, I'd say as it pertains to the dating topic, I did this too, coming down with the, equality in the relationships, or it drives me nuts when I hear this in English. Here's my partner. Like, what, you guys business partners? Or what are you talking about, your partner? Like, that's your man. You're his woman. So down here, I remember I was really shocked at first when, because again, I played baseball and I was training right, so I was jacked for the first time in my life. So I had a lot of female attention. And if you guys have ever been to Guadalajara, the girls there are like, they are top class. They are beautiful, and in their higher class, and they're educated. They're kind of known as a stuck up city, but that's where I went to school, and I went to one of the best schools. Probably there's two or three real good schools in Guadalajara, but I went to one of the top schools, like equivalent of an Ivy League school down here. And so I had like the top girls in the country after me, and weird things like these beautiful girls, that nothing like the girl who turned me down for prom. Like after the girls I got here, looking back, I'm like, ugh, like she's not even effable. Like, I can't believe I was ever caught up over that girl. But they'd come over and they'd start doing the dishes, or they'd start cleaning up the house, or just that like core, solid, true, unfiltered femininity. That was weird for me to deal with because I wasn't used to that in the US. Like, oh, why are you doing the dishes? I can do the dishes. And the girls would look at me weird, like, dude, what's wrong with you? And it's still like that today. Mexico's changed quite a bit in the last 20 years, but it's still way more traditional than the US is, even here in Mexico City, which is the most liberal city, I'd say, in the country. And a lot of foreigners come down here with gringo dating expectations, and you have to realize they don't do PC in other countries like they do in the US. And like, all immigrants are different and you should treat them differently. They don't give a fuck down here. If you come down with a mindset of how things should be done here and you try to impose that on them, you're going to have a lot of pushback. You're going to have a lot of problems, and people are going to think you're weird. So usually the comments that I get from my girls in terms of other gringos, like when I bring buddies down, is like, they're kind of clueless. They don't know how to act like men in the context of a relationship, not even a romantic relationship or a sexual relationship, but they don't know how male-female roles work, and it's really off-putting to them. Sometimes it is a status symbol to where like, oh, look at my gringo boyfriend, but usually they get tired of that pretty quick when like the guy just doesn't get it. And that manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. Again, when she comes over, she'll do the dishes, she'll clean up the house. She wants to start turning your house into a home, is the way I put it. Or even in social type situations where they do the kiss on the cheek. That was a weird thing to me. And again, it's weird when I go back to the US and girls try to like hug you or shake your hand. It's the weirdest damn thing to me because I've been down here so long. Or they're very touchy down here. They're very warm and affectionate and vibrant people. So I grew up in the country with German grandparents that essentially raised me. So like very cold. To this day, my grandpa doesn't hug me, although he's pretty old. So now I'm like, get over here. You're going to hug me, damn it. So, but in Mexico, just very warm, very open, very kind of like how people say in the US, there's that Southern hospitality aspect. It's like that here, but it's everywhere. So really, it's like you kind of got to shed to a degree, just like you do when you find this type of content in general. You have to shed your own belief system, open your mind a bit, and then start to develop a new framework that's going to work for you in the new culture.
Guys hear a lot about passport bro culture, and I'll go anywhere else except the US because, and they'll hear like Mexican women, very feminine, very traditional, in their frame, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is on easy mode, right? So, what does a man have to do to really command? You talked about don't make him an equal partner or don't do weird stuff like start doing the dishes. But, how does a guy really succeed in dating a more traditional woman down in Mexico, or having more of a traditional, if that's what he's kind of going for?
Yeah.
But what does a man sort of have to be, right? I mean, we talk a lot about relationships, and the guys talk about, oh, I want to go elsewhere. I want to go other than the U.S. because the girls are far more feminine, this and that. But, it's got to come with its own unique set of challenges. Just because they're more feminine doesn't necessarily mean it's game on easy mode. We hear about stories of guys getting moved into green card marriages, or getting robbed or getting set up, right? So I mean, how do guys need to prepare themselves, and what are the burdens of performance they need to live up to, so they can actually have a successful relationship?
You need to understand how the world works in general. So a lot of stuff I say is not unique to Mexico. I spent a lot of this summer in the Mediterranean and a while in the Middle East, and we went to some dangerous places in the Middle East that Americans probably shouldn't go to. In fact, they told us not to go, but we went anyways. So you see very quickly when you start to get more stamps in your passport, just in general, that most of the world works the way it does here. So you got to watch your P's and Q's. You have to have situational awareness. Going back to the robbery thing, I did get robbed once in Guadalajara. I should have known, because I remember, like, there's certain, and this sounds terrible in the U.S., but remember, I don't live in the U.S. anymore. So people, before you lose your shit, there's certain people that don't belong in certain neighborhoods, period, in Latin America and everywhere in the world. And you can tell by the way they dress, by their demeanor. There is socioeconomic stuff along racial lines in Mexico. If you don't believe me, look at the Spanish caste system. It is still very, very apparent here. I actually wrote my thesis on the topic, which, for the name change, Gringo Guides, I am published academically, and my thesis was about the word gringo. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to start tying this in and touching more of the intercultural stuff and how to make that transition. But so in Guadalajara, I was walking one day, and I remember seeing these guys, and like just a little voice in my head that I ignored. Hey, these guys seem out of place. They don't seem usual in the neighborhood. Like, people are very friendly and neighborly here. So I know all my neighbors, all the security guards in my building, everyone. There's taco stands on the corner, and there's 3 gym locations I go to around here. I know everyone in my immediate neighborhood. So, and when you start to get your routine down, you start to notice, like, there's kind of a rhythm to a city. So you're in that rhythm, you're just going about your day, and then you notice, like, that doesn't belong here. Like, this, it's like a piece of a puzzle that doesn't fit. So I should have known this in Guadalajara. And at one point, I remember the day before I got robbed, I was walking, and like a guy came up to me and kind of hugged me like real quick, like, hey, bro. And I'm like, whoa. And I thought it was a buddy of mine. And then I was like, okay, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know you. So I'm keep on walking. He's like, oh yeah, no, my bad. Like, I'm mistaken identity. Like, oh, and then the next day, walking that same route, and a group of guys got me at knife point. Thank God I only had a cell phone on me, and I was actually due for an upgrade, and I have insurance. So I just went to the local plaza and just got the newest iPhone. So, like, whatever. But it kind of shook me up a bit. But I realized that one of the guys was the guy that had come up like, hey, the day before. I'm like, okay, that's how they run. That's how they run this game. So it was Independence Day. Yeah, it was Independence Day here the other day, and my whole neighborhood was closed off. There was a high police presence, but everything was closed. So it was weird walking to the gym. There's nobody. Like, normally this neighborhood's bustling, and it's a nice neighborhood. There was nobody. And walking back from the gym, I saw 3 guys kind of standing there, little tattoo right here. People in this neighborhood, Mexico does have a class system and a caste system. People in the higher class don't have little teardrop tattoos. Sorry, my cholo friends in LA, but like people down here, they don't do that. And if you do that, you look down on those people because they are of a lower class and they do lower class stuff. And so I was walking. Clearly, these guys, 3 guys, didn't belong in the neighborhood, wearing all black. But I've learned, and then I was coming out of the gym too, had a nice big pump going, and knowing that the way the society kind of works down here, just kept walking straight, shoulders back, eyes straight. At one point, I caught eyes with the guy with the teardrop tattoo. He had those evil eyes, like he wanted to do something to me. But I literally just stared down at him, just like, you piece of shit, get out of my fucking neighborhood. Like that. I didn't say that, but that was the energy. And guys, again, I know it sounds terrible being of a Western mindset, but read my thesis. I'll actually share it in the description. It breaks down how this works. I don't like thinking that way. I'm good with all social classes. In fact, I get shit from my friends for dating more of the indigenous type girls, but it was in my eyes, like my nonverbal towards him is like, I am better than you. You do not belong in my neighborhood. Get the fuck out of here. And you can say that the guy was kind of like this. And then I was walking fast too. I didn't slow down. So things like the robbery thing. So, oh, hey. When I went to Palestine this summer, our Christian guide, he's like, hey, even if little street kids come up to you and try to sell you stuff, do not talk to them. Like keep moving. He's like, you are a white guy in Palestine. Learn how the world works. So, and again, anyone that gives me shit in the comments for this, I'm going to say, like, don't go abroad because you don't understand how the world works. The US, you're in a bubble. People complain about the US all the time, but it's still relatively safe, although we have a bunch of crazies there. But that's just one example of kind of the cultural awareness you have to have. Like, how does the society work? How is it structured? Remove what you think the way it should be, because guess what? Outside of your country, no one cares what you think. Right. So you have to understand the lay of the land and then where you fit into that framework. And like anything, my dating framework, my fitness framework, once you get the framework down, then you can kind of start to bend it to your liking, and then you can insert yourself into it, and you can, like, I'm not going to change Mexican society. A lot of gringos do that too. Like, well, in the U.S., it's like this. And they're like, bro, you're not in the U.S.
It's like, dude, like, nobody cares.
You're not going to change Mexico. Like the dating thing. The girl's going to be late. Like, oh, well, she doesn't respect me. I should lecture her. I'm like, you're gonna lecture her on 500 years of evolved culture? Like, okay, like have fun with that. Have fun with trying to be punctual down here. And although I have gotten to the point where I'm dating like kind of the wealthier girls, so they are quite punctual because they have things going on. They run and manage businesses, or they've got packed schedules like me too. Or I'm more selecting to the point, like the girls who are punctual, the ones who get priority, and then the ones you guys have all seen in the private chats when, oh, sorry, I can't make it, or oh, my grandma's dog died, or some bullshit excuse. It's like, all right, cool, let me know when you're free in the moment, and if I'm free too, you can come straight to the house. And that's always the line I leave. And then it's funny because as they get attracted to you, they will start to kind of fall into your frame and understand the punctuality and that in general. And again, that's just another example, just like the robbery example. But once you have more time on the ground and you kind of see it with your own eyes, you remove your own cultural preconceptions of the way things should be and your own biases, and then you start to accept your new host country for what it is. Then you can start to integrate. And then now it's to the point where a lot of times I forget I'm a foreigner until people call it out. They'll ask me about something in the U.S. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the gringo of the group. Cool.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man, how people are just so obsessed about the way the world should be and don't live as if the way the world is. And it's, having that situational awareness, and there are certain places you just don't go and certain places you need to avoid. And there's signals that people give out that will tell you who they are. Just because you want to be willfully ignorant, it doesn't mean you're not going to get, robbed and have your stuff taken. And you can cry about how the way the world should be a different way, but we don't live in that world. I want to talk a little bit about we talked about we got into the dating thing there a little bit. I would love to dive into that a little bit more, because as long as I've known you, like, you are very much a systems guy,
Yep.
Very smart, very systems oriented, from your content to your coaching, even down to the way you sort of run your women. And you're somebody that has not really done sort of the monogamous one girl type of relationship. I don't know, probably since you were married,
since my divorce,
as far as I've known you, since you were divorced. And so, can you talk a little bit about sort of the system that you kind of run, as far as whether you have a couple of main girls that you see regularly, and then maybe some girls that you see on the side, not so regularly, and then how do they sort of fit into that? Do they know about each other? Do they not know about one another? How do they sort of interact with each other, if at all? Just give us a little, 30,000 foot view on that.
Yeah. So my system's actually pretty simple. After I did the serial monogamy thing in my 20s, again, thought like, I want to have the wife and the kids and the 2 cars in the garage and the white picket fence. And then after the divorce, I realized, well, this didn't really work. But when we were just girlfriend and boyfriend before the marriage thing was on the table, she was a good girl. We had a great time. I didn't have any issues. I never suspected anything. So at some point, this was before I found like the red pill type topics, but at some point I had lost frame, didn't realize it at the time. And then after the divorce, I actually very quickly, for a while there, my lawyer told me, he's like, you can't sleep with other girls, because if you're going to try to get her for, stepping out of the marriage, it would be a bad look on your part if you're doing the same thing. I'm like, all right. So had to be forcefully celibate for a little bit. So that was actually my monk mode. And coming out of that, then it was like I was right. It's like I was right back in college. I had girls after me again. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, all right, I still got it. It took a while to get over the divorce and the fact that I'd been lied to and I'd been deceived and all that stuff. And then there's that humiliation factor too. And I did have a girl that was really pushing for marriage after my divorce, and she was solid, and she was like, I think she was and I'd already kind of found these type of topics. So I was changing my internal belief system to where like, oh my, and I remember one night I was with her and I felt like this really warm, powerful, loving energy. I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, I'd been laid plenty of times at that point. Even before I found Red Pill, I always had a pretty high notch count or a like decent volume coming through the door. And with this girl, I'm like, oh my God, this is like the first girl that I think like truly, honestly loves me. And it was a weird feeling. It was like, all right, I want more of this. But at that point, I was starting to redo my mental framework to know that like, okay, if you get a girl into a long-term relationship, she's not going to give you her best. And so at that, I was trying to adopt the multiple long-term relationship model. I did kind of screw up at that case to where I think I told her, I led her to believe that she was going to be my girlfriend and that we would maybe go down the road towards something serious while seeing other girls. And I didn't really quite manage that well. Fast forward to now, like I don't throw it in their faces, but like girls know if you have other girls or not. You don't really have to tell them, and then you just don't commit to them. And as you get better in your self-improvement journey, they don't expect you to commit to them. They kind of know that. They're like, oh yeah, no duh, I'm not the only girl. So the role kind of switches to where like, I'm not trying to, like with my wife, oh my God, what do? I want to save the marriage. Like, please don't leave. Like that kind of internal energy to now it's like, I'm so busy with other stuff. Really the best girl wins. So girls do this too, guys. And a lot of people, girls especially get on me in the comments. They're like, oh, I can't believe you do that. I'm like, I learned all my game from girls. Anything I do is because it's been done to me and it worked. Yeah. Like that's where I got it from. So I'm good at reverse engineering systems too, and then putting them together in a way that works for me. So after the divorce, I moved back to San Diego, and then I was pretty openly doing the MLTR thing. So it's been going on year 7 or 8 now since I started doing that. Openly doing the MLTR thing. And then I realized like, okay, not only do I have like 2 or 3 girlfriends now, but I have like good girlfriends. They love me. They respect me. They don't give me any bullshit. There's ones, you'll see them pop up every now and then on my Instagram there, that they've been with me for 6, 7, 8 years now. Recently, 2 weeks, I had one girl, one of those MLTRs from when I was back in San Diego after the divorce. She came down for a week, and then literally the day she left, another one of those girls came down. And like, I see them maybe a couple times a year, but I've still got them. Like they're still my girls. Whenever I want them, they're here. So when I get criticized a lot for running this model, but it's like, okay, well, I've been a good boyfriend before. I've been the loyal, dutiful beta. I was a good husband when I was married. I didn't step out of my marriage. I took that very seriously, and I got shit on. But now when I kind of have this new framework that I do, not only do I get the variety that most guys want in girls, but I'm getting the best of them. I'm getting good behavior. I'm getting them to show up and like actually play girl game, which no one talks about girl game, but girl game is like, hey, I like this guy. How do I lock him down? How do I outcompete the other girls? And when you have that energy, the whole game turns around to where, like I was telling someone the other night, like, oh, what happens if a girl flakes on you? I'm like, oh, thank God. Like I can have a free night. I can have a me night, a me date. Like I love it when girls flake on me. Like, what are you talking about? And really what it comes down to is, and a lot of guys do this too, especially when I go out with my gringo friends or even Mexico guy friends, like, oh, dude, look at that girl. She's so hot. Like, oh, what do I do to get her? That's a losing proposition for me. It's like I go out with my guy friends. I look around. I get an indicator of interest. I'm like, oh, that girl seems like I can tell she's interested in me, at least enough for me to open her. So like, okay, there's already some base level attraction there towards her. My job is just to get her out of her own way, either perceived or whatever little script she's telling herself in her head, to where that attraction can amplify and she can give me her best feminine energy. And in doing so, naturally, that brings out the best, highest quality masculine energy in me. And then things just kind of happen. I define red pill or game as it's the strategic and tactical plans or method in which to remove either real or perceived obstacles between men and women's natural state, which is to be together in the physical sense, spiritual sense, emotional sense, in all of those senses. So that's kind of the way I look at it. When I'm walking down the road, I don't see if a girl's head is down in her phone and she doesn't even notice me, I'm not going to be like, hey, oh, wow, oh, you're really cute. Like, oh, and then like a lot of guys on first dates, yeah, I have a really good income and I'm in really good shape and I have this car and I live in this area. I don't do any of that shit. It's more like I'm going about my daily life. I notice that there's interest from her to me. I open her to determine how that interest is, how I can fit her into my life, into my box. So it's me giving her an opportunity to get close to me. And then really the best girl wins. And when you manage your life, your dating life that way, you don't have drama. You don't have issues. You don't have any of these arguments or anything like that. And I get called arrogant a lot, especially even in the private group sometimes. But you guys are learning. I'm real proud of you guys. We had a win the other night, and I was super proud, patting myself on the back. I'm like, hell yeah, like, because you get to a point where like getting laid's not the end goal. Like, getting laid is the door cover to get to the club. Like the end goal is like getting the table next to the DJ and having the good time and like becoming friends with the owner, and then knowing that like you never have to wait in line again. And if you hit the guy up on your WhatsApp, then like you're in at that place. That's the end goal. That's kind of how it is for relationships. So when guys are like, oh my God, like, oh, I gotta get laid. I'm like, dude, that's you getting in the door. Like, you don't have a shot with me if that's not on the table. I'm not even going to entertain it. And that's because I want a woman's best energy, feminine energy, attraction towards me. And in return, I will give that to her. So it's a nice kind of yin and yang type thing. And if you manage your dating life that way, then again, like a lot of these issues that bring guys to these spaces, they just disappear. And then in terms of the roster, I usually prefer one or two main girls. I have done a lot of volume before that does get time consuming and energy consuming. But my main girls, it's really the girls that they start off, they come over, validational physical intimacy, like real true primal, like, oh my God, I am into you physically. Good sex right from the get-go. No, oh, you have to wait 3 dates, or, oh, well, what are you going to do for me? The door's right there. You know what? I can grab a guitar, or, you know, get behind the computer. I have plenty of work to do, and my night's going to be fine with or without you. So straight from the get-go. And guys, I am doing a dating course soon. I actually lead with that in my dating profile. I do a call to action. Fun fit guy looking for fun fit girl for, I don't really smoke much anymore, but 420 snacks and snuggles. That sets the tone. They know what they're getting into. And then my opening line is a decision tree. It's either, is she DTF or no? Yes, no decision logic. She trickles on down. So when she does come straight to the house and like, oh, well, what if she wants to meet me halfway? I leave her on red. Like, well, I'm not doing halfway because I already have girls in these positions. And if you want to replace this girl, you got to step up. Otherwise, I'll just stay with my main girl. Like, why am I going to entertain some new girl who's a pain in the ass when my main girl has worked really hard to get to that position? Like, we're just not going to do that. So when you have these parameters and these systems and structures in place, you don't have to do anything. The girls have to do all the work. They have to navigate this, and they have to be feminine. They have to be sweet. They have to be on time. They have to be responsive. They have to not play games. Otherwise, they don't get me. And again, guys, if you find yourself at the itching on the keyboard, like, oh, Jared doesn't know what he's talking about, or oh my God, like what an asshole, then you shouldn't be dating, because that is how you win at the game. And I want guys to win. And if you do want to win, top 10% group, get in there. Like we've got guys that have been out of the game for a while, guys that have like little to no notch count, and all of a sudden, like, dude, I have a rotation of 8 girls. Like, yeah, see, like it's really easy if you flip the script. How much is she into me? And then just keep that in all times. And I had my main girl a couple weeks ago. She pulled away a bit. Most guys in our private groups, actually, their main girls are they're bi, so you can actually get your girls to source girls for you, because what they want to do at the end of the day, that feminine energy, is they want to please their man. She's earned that spot, and she's like, how do I get a leg up on all these other girls? I don't throw other girls in her face, but like, she knows there's other girls. Like, how do I get a leg up on all of these other girls? So they have to sweeten the pot, and they're constantly doing that. Whereas back in my marriage days, it was the other way around. Oh my God, what do I do? Like, how do I fix this? I want us to be a family. Let's stick to the plan. I lost. The minute that internal energy was there, I lost. So when you flip that script, you get to live game on like a high level that probably only 1% of the population will, which is nice in our private groups, Moff, because that's kind of how we all do it. To me, it's weird when guys don't run their game that way.
Yeah, what's interesting is that you talk about getting hate, and people think that you're arrogant, and just the way you talk,
it's just matter of fact.
Tell a guy is just, it's very matter of fact. It's very, this is the way it is. And it's always funny when I hear guys, oh, he's lying or he's making things up. It's like, but, in good shape, has his life together, running game, knows the ins and outs of intersexual dynamics. It's like, if you're not getting the women, then who are they going for? It's like, if they're not dating you, if they're not sleeping with you, then who the hell are they sleeping with?
They do settle for betas. I was walking back from the gym today, saw real 3 cute girls with guys that like weren't really nothing going on.
Yeah.
And Moff, I know you've seen this too, because I've been with you, where like a girl's walking in the hand of her boyfriend, and he's oblivious, and she like turns her whole body to check you out. You're like, yep.
Like, yeah.
So, and guys, we know this. Alpha Fs and beta bucks. So that equation does ring true.
We got a question here from Deeper Currents. So how I've got my thoughts on this, but I want to get yours first. How would you run that game in a smaller town? I mean, Mexico City's what, 15 million plus people. How many is the population?
20, 30 if you consider the whole
30.
metro. I think within a 100-kilometer radius, a third of the Mexican race lives here in like the cuna, or like the crib, or like the cradle of Mexico. A third of them live in the U.S. and a third of them live elsewhere in Mexico, around the world. So
for context,
population density.
Yeah, for context for you guys, New York City is about 10 million. So 3 times that size.
It's massive. Mexico City is massive. Yeah. And population density, they're close. So I can go on my Tinder and put a 1-kilometer radius. I'm not going to run out of options. And I walk a lot around here. I look around. I don't have a lot of competition. So yeah, you do have to raise your S&B on the physical attraction front. But then my Tinder is all it's like a douchebag profile. It's all shirtless pics. Like, you'll hear guys who don't do shirtless pics. Well, yeah, if you're fat, don't do shirtless pics. But if you have a 6-pack, do shirtless pics. Especially when you're in an area where people perceive you to be higher S&B, and then with your own 2 eyes, you can look around like, I don't have a lot of competition. And when I do meet guys, I hung out with an American guy last week, and dude looked like a GQ model. I'm like, oh my God, I don't hold the candle to him physical attraction wise, until he opened his mouth. And I'm like just not really sure of himself, kind of weak, kind of awkward, kind of goofy. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, have you not looked at yourself in the mirror? So these things come into factor. But for smaller town guys, like, if you want to run volume, you got to go where the population's at, or you have to commute. I've worked with a lot of guys like, hey, I live 2 hours from the major town. Okay, well, build your life, structure your schedule in a way to where you can go to the weekends. And then once you build that attraction, you can go back and forth, kind of like I did that with my Colombian wife. San Diego to Houston, San Diego to Miami, or like her to San Diego, or wherever. Like we saw each other every few weeks in those towns, but we had roots in those large towns too. So, all right, so 2.5, 3 hour, 4 hour flight or whatever, all right, cool. We can do that. So that's probably what the smaller town guys have to do. Try to get to a bigger market, dominate your market. Although I've seen in smaller towns, especially in the US, there's not a lot of good dating options there, girls or guys. Yeah. Guys, be honest with yourself too. I get a lot of you small town guys on my coaching calls. Like, yeah, dude, I'd say I'm like an 8. I'm like, you're not. Like, maybe you're an 8 in your town, but come to a big town, like you're not on the radar.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to point out here. If you're in a smaller town, I hope it's a college town. That guys can do very well in college towns that are just kind of revolving doors of young hot chicks, if that's your jam, which for most guys it is. If you're going to do this in a smaller town, guys often get worried about their reputation. You've got to be willing to pretty much nuke that reputation, because it's going to follow you around. Now, it could still work in your favor, because women and how they think about men is they want a guy that every other girl wants. They just want to be the one that he picks. So even though women will say stuff to you like, oh, he's ran through, or I don't want him because he's a man whore, or this and that, they'll say one thing, but they're going to do something completely different. So in a small town, if you're a good-looking guy with a high S&V, you can really do very well. The problem that you're going to run into is that it's going to completely nuke your reputation. So be okay with that. And my God, you might end up going home with some guy's girlfriend or wife and you didn't know about it. So that's dangerous. But 2, depending on how size of a city we're talking, your options are going to be probably very limited. I think this is a question we get quite often. It's like, well, I live in a small town. How am I supposed to do online dating?
It's a valid question. Yeah, a lot of guys are in that situation.
Yeah, and so it's like, if you're not okay with your town, and you've got a town of 20,000 people, yeah, just on the balance of probabilities, your options are going to be generally limited. But to your point, take a second to look in the mirror and be very honest with yourself. And if you do go somewhere else, are you playing in AA ball and you want to move to the majors where you have no chance? So all things to consider.
And I actually kind of ran into that too when I played ball down here. I went to a private school, so very small college campus, and there wasn't a lot of gringos or foreigners on that campus. So I stuck out. It was very well known who I was. I was on the sports team, so I was pretty popular. A lot of people here live with their parents until they're married, especially more so back in the day, 20 years ago, in a very traditional town. So I had a big house and a bunch of foreigners lived there, and we always had house parties like pretty much every weekend. So I was pretty popular at a very small school where I was well known. And at first, I got the reputation like, oh, he's a player, he's a this or that. And it got to the point where girls, I had some female roommates too. And one of my female roommates, one time a girl came over and I think I was talking to her, and one of her friends like, "Oh, he's a player, don't screw around with him." And one of my female roommates, she's like, "You know what? I've watched him bring girl after girl into this house." And she's like, "Yeah, he does get laid a lot, but like he genuinely loves his girls. He's genuinely good to them. And there's a reason these girls keep coming over." And I kind of got away from that for a bit when I started like getting more into the volume game, when I was getting back on my game after the divorce. I was working in El Salvador for a bit, and my volume went way up there. Same thing, very small neighborhood in a very small town in a small country, and people knew who I was. There's not a lot of people there that look like me, and so the word started getting around real quick, and I did kind of screw it up at first because like, hell yeah, I'm getting back on my game, and I call it being always alpha all the time. And guys like Apex Mindset talk about this a lot, that yeah, you have to lead with that alpha energy, but you also have to have that comfort building side. And if you know how to balance both of those, then you have them. Then you'll get a girl that actually love you. She'll give you the best of herself sexually, but she's not going to look at you as a fuck boy. Like, okay, yeah, this gringo's hot, I'm going to bang him. And then, because you get to the point where you're like, oh, I actually like this girl. Like, why isn't she coming back around? And then those beta tendencies start coming back in. So like you can very quickly fall back into old habits. But over the years, I've kind of massaged those elements of my personality out to where it's like I was in college again. When I go to a public event, I'll take my main girl. We went to it was a pink party a couple of weeks ago, rooftop bar. I'm buddies with the DJ. I have a pretty small social circle here, but we're all real tight, and they're all cool guys and girls. And so we went there, and I took my main girl, and of course people are taking photos of us and whatnot. And then at some point, I didn't even know the Instagram account for the like event host or whatever. And at some point, girls started dropping in my DMs, and there was one, I remember she was at the table next to us, and my main girl was like leaning on me the entire time. I still managed to get a couple numbers that night, ended up making things happen with a couple of those. And then I had one girl, she was actually here last night, reached out to me, and I was like, where'd you find me? Like, I remember seeing you at the place, but like I didn't get tagged in anything, and I didn't even realize I had photos of me out there. And she's like, oh yeah, someone published some photos of you. And like, so she must have tracked me down. And then so she, and again, I was this event, I was with my main girl the whole time, and she was kind of lovey-dovey and like leaning on me and kissing on me and stuff. So the point of the matter is that girls really don't care if they see that not only other women are attracted to you, but other women want to like be around you for more than just the fling type thing. And when you get that reputation, like, okay, not only is he hot, not only does he get women, but women love him and he loves them back, then they stick around for a very, very long time. And you get a lot of liberty as a guy when you know how to balance that equation.
Yeah, it just ties back into the dualistic mating strategy of women. Alpha C.
You have to satisfy both.
There's no way you can lean too far, and I think that's what a lot of guys who find the red pill, they it's an overcorrection. They say, "Oh, I was completely." Yep.
The pendulum goes too far to the other side.
And they go, I need to just be a complete asshole, alpha guy, very aloof. And to your point, it's like, oh, why doesn't she call me anymore? Or why doesn't she want to hang out? It's like, oh, because she knows that, you don't provide the emotional sort of support. And if that's not part of your game and you don't see her as a viable option, and that's something that you're going to have to wrestle within yourself. But, you can't stick a girl in an FWB zone. They don't like being there unless, you've got to be able to kind of throw some of that comfort in as well. Yeah, I totally agree on that. Let's talk about, the tribe and men and what it takes to, be a good man and be good at being a man. What are some of the things that you look for when you're trying to decide if you want to, hang out with a guy or give him your time and your resources and things like that? Because I'm sure there's guys that hit you up and say, hey, Jaron, I want to come to Mexico. I watch all your stuff. I want to run to the bars with you. I want to get introduced to hot Latino women. What are some things that you have to take into consideration where it's like, I don't know if I want to hang out with this guy. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. What are some things that, you raise your red flags when guys are, trying to get into your inner circle, so to speak?
An immediate thing is how you carry yourself and how you take care of yourself. So again, I get called an asshole for this all the time, but if you were sloppy and gross and 100 pounds overweight and you're drinking 12 beers a night and chain smoking cigarettes all day, I can see that on your skin. I can see that in your face. I can tell in your demeanor. And I'm really into my physical health, but spiritual health, emotional health. I try to optimize all of that stuff. And when you get to a new level, there's another level to go. So for now, like I've been big and jacked and I've been lean and mean and all that stuff. For me now, it's like aging gracefully. Just treat my body the best that I can. And that shows. It shows on your face. It shows in your skin. It shows in just your general energy and demeanor and your vibe and the way you go about the world. So I can pick up on that immediately. Like if you're a big sloppy fuck and then you're like, oh, hey, I want to hang out with you. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'd rather not. Like, I don't associate with people like that. Oh, you're a dickhead. You're a douchebag. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, because what that tells me is that you don't care enough about yourself to make that a priority in your life. So why should I care about you? And it's also an energy exchange. So when I'm around people like that, it's emotionally exhausting for me. It drains my batteries. I cannot be around people. I want people to amplify me. And in return, again, all relationships should be reciprocal. That might be different ways. Maybe someone brings more money to the equation, but you were helping them with this fitness or getting over dating type stuff. There's different areas where people have strengths in other areas of their life, but it needs to be a give and get type relationship. So when I see from the get-go that you don't give yourself the best of yourself, then what am I going to get out of you? Like, you're just going to be a drain for me. You're going to, dude, it's, we were talking in the private chat, like these guys that jack us off on these calls to the top 10% group. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm sold. I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you. You need to sell me. Like, there's guys like us in there, and we want more guys like us. If you're not sure, if you don't think you're worth $1,000, then why are we having this conversation? Those are things I look for. Now, if you think you're and you have to be real careful with this because you can get in the line of arrogance. Like if you think you're the shit, but you really have nothing to show for it. Like for example, in the game topics, like I don't think I'm the shit or anything. It's just like I had this problem and now I don't have this problem. And not only do I not have the problem, I almost have an opposite problem to where like there's too much abundance. There's like constantly getting hit up and girls always want my attention. Like, how do you manage that? But again, that's just matter of fact. But like the finance thing, you'll never hear me say about like how I'm a big baller financially because I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm still doing really well compared to most average people and even like the higher percentile of the population. But you start hanging out with guys like Rich Coopers and like in Rich's network, you're like, oh, I thought I was doing pretty good until I met some of these guys. Like, well, you work so hard to get to a new level and then you're like, hell yeah, I leveled up. And then you realize that level, it's much further to get to the next level and you're at the very bottom of that new level. So it is very humbling. So those are things I look for in guys, like kind of like, how do you carry yourself? Like, how do you treat yourself? The way they talk, are you confident? Are you assured? And again, there has to be something behind it, but, or are you someone like I just generally want to hang out with? Do we have mutual interests? For me, my interest is not going out and getting drunk and watching football. It's not chasing pussy. It's not talking about low IQ, low energy stuff. Someone asked me the other day, like, oh, what do you think about politics? I'm like, I don't think about that. Like, why would I care who wins the election? Like whether it's my guy or your guy or whatever, like the world is going to do what it's going to do. I need to see what's going on in front of my eyes and make sure that my strategy fits into that to where I can get ahead. Every obstacle is an opportunity. So I need people that are wired that way for me to even really consider bringing them into my circle. Same expectations I have on my girls. Like, hey, if you want to be around me, you better bring your best self because when I give myself to someone, I'm going to give myself to you. You're going to get the best out of me. And that is the expectation. Otherwise, another big thing too is like, do you love yourself? I love myself. So when I'm home alone, I'm having a good time. Like I'm walking around the house, listening to music, singing and dancing and being a complete fucking doof. But like I enjoy my own company. So if you're not comfortable in your own skin, then why would I give a piece of myself to you when I'd rather be by myself?
Yeah. A lot of great stuff to unpack there, man. I think something that you hit on that I 100% agree with is just do I like hanging out with you? Like, are you a guy? I call it the beer test, even though I don't drink anymore, and I don't have a really name for it. Maybe I should change it to the cigar test. But it's like, would I spend an hour with you of my own time, given how busy I am, given how busy you are? Are you a guy that I want to carve out time for out of my day? And yeah, we're not going to be talking about, fantasy sports and politics and weather and all this dumb normie stuff. There's a reason that I generally don't spend time with people that are not either in the community or I'm actively trying to get into the community. There's some guys down here in Tampa that I'm trying to get in and, I think they're good fits and I'll spend time with them and there's guys in the community down here. But other than that, I had a conversation with a couple guys. I was just in Toronto last weekend doing a Tough Mudder event with some of the 1% guys. said, listen, man, like I only really have, time for four things. And I cut it down to two but I originally said I've only got really time for four things: my family, my tribe, my chick, and my business. And I guess if you consider your family and your chick and your tribe all one, then that leaves two things. It's my tribe and my business. And if you don't fit into one of those categories, I don't know what to tell you, man. Either you need to find your way in talking about, tire kickers in the community. And it's crazy how many guys want to sort of interview you to see if they're a good fit or they would like being in the community. We got people that are DMing us, asking us very personal questions about our family and like relationship history.
Yep. Why don't you show your girls? Dude, look at my Instagram. I'll show them and they get harassed.
Not only that, but I don't share personal, close to my chest information with complete strangers. No. You've got to earn your way into the tribe. I don't just go on spouting stuff about my personal life willy-nilly to every single person on the planet just because you ask me a question in my DMs. Like I don't.
And if you get in the inner circle, you'll know all these people. I've got a top 1% guys coming down on Saturday. Then we're going to Tampa, and then from there, a top 10% guys coming down. You're going to meet everyone in my life. All of these girls I talk about, these guys are going to meet every single one of them. But you're in my inner circle. Like some stranger on the internet who has an avatar as your profile picture, like, dude, who the fuck are you? No, like, if you're not going to put a picture of yourself on there, then you're not like, if you're not worth looking at, then like, why am I going to show you intimate parts of my life? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Now, as a disclaimer, I appreciate guys that watch my stuff. I'm sure you do too. I appreciate guys that message me. And
most of my guys are awesome.
Yeah, it's like, hey man, like I watch your stuff. Keep up the great content. You've helped me out with a lot of stuff. I'm looking forward to more. I'm always appreciative of those messages. I'm not telling you guys to stop sending them, but grilling me in my DMs and making me qualify to you is super strange. And here's the thing, I always remember that stuff. If people do end up finally pulling the trigger on the community, I'm gonna remember that you asked me a bunch of questions, or you expected me to give you a bunch of value for free, or you wanted a bunch of my time without, going and paying for a coaching session or getting in the community. I'm going to remember that stuff. So it's really not in your best interest to waste somebody's time. If you're going to do something, don't tell me you're going to do it. Don't message me, say, hey, I'm going to sign up, or I'd like to sign up. Just sign up, because the links are easy to find, and I'll send it to you and you pull the trigger, and then, then we can take the next step. But you can't expect me to invest a bunch of my time and effort into you if you're not willing to do it, into yourself first.
I've got a couple guys right now. One guy, hey, 9:20, I'm joining. And then, oh, well, hey, I need to see pictures of your girls or something. I'm like, that tells me you're not a man of your word. Guess what? The answer is no. We don't want you in there. Another guy, 9:21. Guess what? Today's 9:21. I don't see that payment coming through. You tell me you're going to do something, you better fucking do it. Otherwise, you don't exist to me.
Now we don't want you.
Because, and again, I know a lot of people will say it sounds arrogant, but in my head, I've worked really hard for what I have, but I still see myself as being at the ground zero. I'm day one. Like, okay, I got to a new level. What's the next level? So for me to get to that next level, I can't have dead weight behind me. Hey man, 9:20, I'm definitely showing up. I'm excited. I think this is what I need. And then you ghost. Like, and these are the same guys that get frustrated when girls do this shit. Like, oh my God, man, we set a date. She flaked on me. I was like, bro, you get pissed when girls are flaking on you and you're flaking on bros. It is much easier to get it to replace a girl than it is to find like a solid dude. You have this opportunity and you're fucking around with it. We don't want you. You're not there.
You're not a fit, and we don't need your money and we don't need your cash. Like we'll happily send it right back to you, because you're not part of the tribe, man. And you don't. That thing like, too.
Dude, my girls don't even do that. So you get dudes behind the camera telling you, yeah, man, I'm going to do that. I'm like, dude, you're worse than a 19-year-old Mexican girl. And like really, Colonel like you're worse than an Instagram butt model.
Colonel kind of hits the nail on the head a little bit here. Like, I've experienced this, man. Like I told my girl when we first
my girls share those with me too, guys. Yeah, guess what? They do.
She didn't really understand it at first, but I said, you'll understand that there's people out there that don't like what I do, don't like what I say, and they will come after you. It's for your own good. It's for your own protection. And look, man, because I used to do stereo shows a long time ago with the girl that I was seeing very casually, and the DM she would get and just the venom Like, how can you date a guy like Moff? Or I can't believe you would sleep with a guy like this. He treats you so poorly, and I would treat you so good, and you should go like sleep with me, not him. And it's like, it's just
they showed me those messages right when I got done just turning them inside out. Isn't it funny?
It's unreal, man. So guys, don't be tire kickers. Don't be assholes. Don't be the guys in the DMs telling us you're going to do something and not do it, man. Because we're going to remember you. And
that lets me know they do that. They do that in every aspect of their life.
Right.
So like that's the reason you're not winning. You say you're going to do something, you convince yourself you're going to do it, and then and you're not letting us down. I could give a shit less. Like I'm doing good with or without you. You're letting yourself down at the end of the day. Like, yeah, man, I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to start leveling up, and then Jaron, yeah, 920, I'm going to send that payment, and then it comes like I could give a fuck less, but you have to live with yourself at the end of the day, and then years will go by, time will go by. Like, well, I started my transformation almost 8 years ago. I'm so glad I did. And every day just gets better. Like when you get momentum, the days get better and better and better. And you make bigger strides and bigger leaps and have bigger wins much more frequently. Like it's a snowball effect. And here you are on day one, like, yeah, I'm going to get going. Like, dude, you're not lying to me. Like I can see right through it. But you're lying to yourself, and you're at the end of the day, you're the one who'll be disappointed. Like you won't exist to me. It's just like when a girl flakes. Like you'll get buried in my messages somewhere. I don't even remember you exist.
Totally. I'm going to take the last 5 minutes. Let's go just ahead and start to wrap up. I'm going to finish up with some housekeeping items for the guys that weren't here at the very beginning. But this has been fun, man. So just give your spiel, like tell the people where they can find you, what you got coming up, going on, and if you guys want to get in touch with you, how can they?
Yeah, it's like the olden days going back on stereo without the call-ins. Oh, dude, I would love to do a call-in show with you. That was pretty fun. You get the worst of the worst on the internet on that app. But
they keep trying to bring me back to stereo. I'm like, guys, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
you're probably one of the most popular creators because you could fill a room. Yep. Yeah. So my stuff, you guys will notice, and I have seen some guys in the comments or the live chat mention this. I have changed my name to Gringo Guides. I was doing the Men's Shrine stuff before. I want to start kind of like what Rich did, start separating myself from the manosphere and the red pill type space. It served a time and place in its life when I needed it, especially when I was going through a divorce, almost bankrupt, and my brother's actually a wounded vet. So he was in a coma for a few months, flatlined a few times. So I was so stressed out, weight of the world on my hands, on my shoulders. Really helped me get through it. I was in the anger phase for a bit, but then you get to the point where you kind of start outgrowing this stuff. It's like you're going warp speed. You go through that tunnel, that dense light. It's squeezing in on you, and then you come out the other side, and you're like, oh, none of that noise exists anymore. Life is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's grand. It's fantastic. I am the proprietor of my own universe. I can literally write down on a piece of paper what I'm going to do with my life, and it happens because I built those systems. So I want to start getting away kind of like the negative stuff, like, oh, all women are 304s. Like, mine aren't. Like I date fantastic women. I don't have that experience. Or, oh, a woman's just going to hurt you. Yeah, I know. I've been there, but like that doesn't happen anymore. So I want to start evolving, and I want to open myself up to doing more type of content. Going back to the Mexico topic, I moved down here when I was 18 years old, absolutely crushed it, came back, I'm absolutely crushing it. The world is moving into a place where like the U.S. is a dying empire. Mexico is going to be one of the world's top 10 economies, I believe by 2030 is what they say. Huge, robust manufacturing base is booming here. There's momentum in this country. So I like being on winning teams. Okay, maybe they're not undefeated like the U.S. was, up at one point in their historical wars, but the U.S. is like the hot chick in the 80s. She's passé. She's gone, and she doesn't realize she's hit the wall yet. Mexico's like that, or like me, like me, that nerdy kid who lost all the weight, kind of stepping into himself and doesn't realize like, holy shit, I'm hot. Or like the hot girl in a 90s teen movie where you pull her glasses off and let her hair down. You're like, whoa, Lainey's hot. Oh my God. So Mexico's on the up and up. The U.S. is on the down and down. And that creates a lot of interest. A lot of people are curious about these cultures. And even on the other side of the equation, there's the U.S. is the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world, behind Mexico. We speak more Spanish in the United States than they do in Spain. And in my lifetime, it will be the number one Spanish-speaking country in the world. So guys, like, where are all the good women? If you live in Miami and you don't speak Spanish, you're missing out. Like, Moff, you and I have been to Miami. We did a top 10% meetup in Miami. When I walk up and talk to a beautiful Colombian in Miami, their entire body lights up. they don't go for guys like fresh and fit guys. Again, nothing against them, but like those types of guys. Oh, Drake got to have a mansion. Moff and I sat down on my Tinder, like, hey, we have a mansion, we have a yacht, we have exotic cars, we have photographers. Like, yeah, not into that. Let me know when you're free. I'd love to meet you. All in Spanish. So like, even when you live in these like hot cities where you think these girls are unattainable, if you know their language and you know their culture, they're at your doorstep. And even when you're in the US, you don't even have to go abroad. If you live in a major city and speak Spanish, you get access to the best girls, and they're dying for a guy like you. So I want to start evolving more. I think I have more to add than just like the kind of echo chamber of red pill stuff. Again, there's a lot of good stuff there, and it's a great starting point, especially if you're going through trauma. But when you come out on the other side, it's like, okay, got myself put together. How do I start piecing a life together? And I've noticed a lot of people ask me these type of questions. I do have the experience because I went to one of the best schools here. My thesis is published. It is frequently cited academically on this exact topic. And guys come down and visit me. And for me, it's weird. For me, my lifestyle doesn't seem like it's anything exceptional. In fact, I'll have my girls come over. I'm like, oh, I could do better. Like, oh, I could do hotter. Like, I'm kind of on easy mode. But then I have buddies come down like, dude, oh my God. Like, oh, it's so awesome. I'm like, all right, I think I have more value to add to the market, and I can start pushing new topics and create a new category and start evolving this space, because I don't want to be doing what every guy's done. I'm not wired that way. I've never been that guy. I've always been the guy where someone tells me something's true. I'm like, okay, yes, and, or, what is there to add to there? How do we start being trailblazers in this space? So I think this is going to allow me to not only niche down and create a new category, but start opening up new topics too. I do a lot of singing in Spanish. I have a show on Thursdays at 1 p.m., which that was a big milestone for me to start live streaming in Spanish. And this chick has like 2 million followers. So I'm like, oh my God, but it's really fun. So I want to start integrating my actual lifestyle with these type of topics. So I'm still going to talk about dating and fitness and finances and living for yourself and minimalism and how the remote location stuff. But I want to start bringing my actual life into it rather than me being at home all day behind the computer talking about, like kind of dogmatic, more academic, red pill manosphere type topics. So that's the name change. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot more collaborations, have a lot of fun stuff on the horizon. Join the top 10% group. I am an admin. We are getting a good batch of guys in there lately. We are closing out October 31st. That is a $997 price point. Again, don't DM me and ask me, well, what value do I get out of it? By you asking what value you get out of it, tells me that you don't have any value to add. It's a give-get community. So if you go there willing to give, you're going to get a ton out of it. There's a reason I'm put in front of Rich's audience. There's a reason I'm on the general show. There's a reason I have a course coming up on the dating thing. Moff asked earlier on the framework, my exact framework, exactly what I do. And it's actually, you guys will notice in the post when you get in the group, I'll start with like, oh, quick response. And then it's a novel. It's like very detailed and comprehensive and broken down. My dating course is no different. It was an online dating course, and now it's like a complete makeover course. Like there's a module on sexual hygiene. A lot of guys get weird. Like, well, what if I get an STD? I'm like, you need to learn about how the body works and how these things work, and like how guys that actually run volume treat this topic, and it'll blow your mind. You'll have to undo a lot of your conditioning. There's a module in terms of like just hygiene in general. A lot of guys, I'll get them on calls like, hey man, I'm not getting the girls. I'm like, well, like, I can't imagine any girl that would want to hook up with you, because again, I've been there before. I was the 100-pound overweight guy, and now I'm very much not overweight. So I've been there. I've been on both extremes. So I want to help guide you along the way. So there's a course coming up for that. I'll be doing more courses, probably at least quarterly. I'll have my fitness framework, the Gringo Guide to Speaking Spanish. I learned that language very quickly. I learned it in a way that they never teach you anywhere else. And actually, there's a top 1% guy. He uses the same methodology I did. We came to the same logical conclusion, independent of each other. So I do want to collaborate with him. So a lot of crazy stuff. Like Moff said, I'm a nerd at the end of the day. I'm a systems and structures guy. You pull out your own belief system, kind of throw it out in the wind, start putting a new one together, and then try things out. Growing is painful. Like you're going to take some L's, you're going to fall over, skin your knees, get some bruises, bump your elbow, but you'll get on it. And then eventually, once you have a system locked and dialed in, you can commit it internally, then you never have to worry about it again. So I want to start exploring these topics. Gringo Guides lets me do that. Fitness, finance, dating, all of that kind of stuff. It allows me to travel more. I do want to start putting my girls out there more publicly and do more creative stuff, like little intercultural differences. There's things that happen every day in my daily life that like just me and my girls crack up. And I do want to have a crossover between the English Spanish audience, because I am getting in front of Spanish audiences, and they seem to like me. So guys, this is my native language. Like, show me some love. Join the top 10% group. Give me a follow. I'll be doing content daily. Hit up Moff too for top 10%. He can also get you in there, and look forward to big things to come. And this came up recently. I was added as a coach for a boot camp, because they're two very big names in the space. I'm not going to reveal any information, but I always say, and you hear on this channel, like, okay, you do know like the structure, like how to day game, how to pick up girls, but if you don't know the language or the cultural aspect, you're missing a large part of the equation. So these guys invited me to join. We have a couple sign-up spots if you want to come down and get that. It's here in a couple weeks, but I'm not going to let anything more out. Again, like the top 10% group, if you're serious, hit me up. Don't waste my time, and we'll get you going on that front. Dating courses coming out around Thanksgiving time, and then top 10%, guys, get in there. October 31st, Halloween, scary, closes. It's out.
Yeah, man. Great,
that is it.
Great synopsis there, and I'm looking forward to seeing where your content goes, man. I've been pushing you for a long time to kind of quadruple down on this stuff, so I'm excited to see where you go. All right,
I'm treating it like a business now.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna put you backstage for a little bit, just hang out until I go live. Until I end live. All right, guys, real quick. Putting a couple of links in the chat here. Man, Jaron's a great fucking guest, guys. Oh, and by the way, for anybody that has, thinks it's sweet out here, Jaron pulls girls in Miami, pulls girls in Nashville, Tennessee, pulls girls in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So don't think it's just a Mexican thing. That dude runs game. Put a couple links in the chat. If you guys could go ahead and follow my personal channel, I'm going to start putting some clips from these shows as well as some other things. The second link, the richcooper.ca/forum, is the public link to the 1% community forum that's taking place, for some of you guys who weren't here at the beginning, in Toronto, January 20th and 21st, 2024. It's going to be a meetup of 1% members. Guys are going to be doing a lot of fireside chats. It's going to be a ton of value. You're discussing everything from fitness, finances, relationships, LTRs, dating, spinning plates, networking, getting the most out of life, everything that we talk about on a daily basis, and the kind of guys you're going to be able to rub shoulders with and be around. Really good opportunity. Everything is covered in this price point, I believe, except for flights, but everything from your hotels to your meals, the admission to the forum itself. When I say forum, I'm talking about the meetup, not the actual forum where, we type things out and have the actual host group. If you want to learn more about any of our communities, you can look down here, the ticker, entrepreneursandcars.com/community. The 10% is on there. The 1% is on there for more information. And then if you want to learn more about how you can actually get in, hit up me or Jaron. Either one's fine. We'll steer you in the right direction. Finally, like I said, get on the email list. I'm going to put that back up one more time. Get the email list. If you haven't gotten the free red flags chapter because you haven't read the book, get that right now. The second edition of the book is currently in the works. So the Unplugged Alpha is being worked on, and it's going to be released, sometime in the very near future. But if you get on this email list, you'll be able to keep up with everything that we're doing, including the beginner's sort of school of unplugging course that Rich and I are working on. TBD if I'm going to be having a show next week. But I will do my best to try to, get that down. Like I said, a bunch of guys are going to be doing a big meetup. We got about 20 guys. We're doing, some fishing. We're doing some MMA and some cage time and some sparring. We're doing a weapons course. We're getting supercars. I mean, it's going to be a really, really fun time. And, if you've ever been on the fence about joining the community, it's never been a better time, man. So appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I'm going to run the ad reel really quickly, and then we are going to run on out of here. So appreciate you guys coming out, and see you at the next one.
All right, guys. If you enjoyed that podcast, make sure you visit my website at richcooper.ca to learn more about my courses, my book, The Unplugged Alpha, community, or booking me for private coaching. Also, if you are a Canadian with $15,000 or more of credit card debt and what you are doing right now isn't paying off the balances, then visit totaldebtfreedom.ca and hit get a free quote to see if you qualify to settle your credit card debt for less than you owe today over the next 48 months. Make sure you check out the top pinned comment on YouTube for all the links mentioned during the show. Peace.